Welcome. I'm Eric Fleming, host of A Moment with Eric Fleming, the podcast of our time. I want to personally thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like what you're hearing, then I need you to do a few things. First, I need subscribers. I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/A Moment with Eric Fleming. Your subscription allows an independent podcaster like me the freedom to speak truth to power and to expand and improve the show. Second, leave a 5-star review for the podcast on the streaming service you listen to it. That will help the podcast tremendously. Third, go to the website, momenteric.com. There you can subscribe to the podcast, leave reviews and comments, listen to past episodes, and even learn a little bit about your host. Lastly, don't keep this a secret like it's your own personal guilty pleasure. Tell someone else about the podcast. Encourage others to listen to the podcast and share the podcast on your social media platforms because it is time to make this moment a movement. Thanks in advance for supporting the podcast of our time. I hope you enjoy this episode as well.
The following program is hosted by the NVG Podcast Network.
Hello, and welcome to another moment with Eric Fleming. I am your host, Eric Fleming. So today is going to be kind of a, I say chill episode. I got another one of my friends coming on, young lady named Marty Davis. And Marty made a prediction. And she had said that Donald Trump was going to win when I interviewed her in April. Of course, Biden was still running at the time and all that, but she predicted it. So, of course, since she was right and had time to reach out to her, just wanted to have her come back on and just kind of talk about why that happened in her perspective and what we think is going to happen during first few days that Donald Trump is going to be back in office. So I hope y'all enjoy that. I guess we can call that another episode of Marty's Crystal Ball and go from there. So yeah, and then there's some stuff I want to talk about. So it's going to be a typical show as far as time, but I just really wanted to get her back on since she made that assessment of that prediction that Trump was going to win and just kind of flesh that out a little bit. All right. So I hope y'all enjoy this. Like I said, I've got some on my mind. I want to, maybe a couple things, but it's definitely one thing on my mind I want to address. And I don't know how long that'll take, but I do want to get that off my chest. So let's go ahead and get this show started. And as always, we started with a moment of news with Grace G.
Thanks, Eric. President-elect Donald Trump nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Matt Gaetz withdrew his nomination for Attorney General as allegations of sexual misconduct raised concern from Republican senators. The U.S. Justice Department reported that the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta systematically violates inmates' constitutional rights, citing severe neglect and inadequate care. The Biden administration has allowed Ukraine to use U.S.-made weapons for long-range attacks in Russia as Ukraine prepares to target Russian military installations. The Palm Springs City Council approved a $5.9 million reparation settlement for former residents of a black neighborhood destroyed in the 1960s. The family of Malcolm X filed a $100 million federal lawsuit against the FBI, CIA, and NYPD, alleging they allowed his assassination to occur and concealed evidence about the plot. U.S. Envoy Rahm Emanuel and former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley are considering Viz for chair of the Democratic National Committee. The Texas Supreme Court cleared the way for the execution of Robert Robertson, who was convicted of murdering his toddler based on shaken baby syndrome. A Wyoming judge ruled that 2 anti-abortion laws are unconstitutional, citing a state constitutional right to individual healthcare decisions. A federal judge in Texas permanently blocked a rule intended to expand overtime pay to millions of salaried workers. Florida's Attorney General has filed a lawsuit against FEMA for allegedly discriminating against hurricane victims who supported Trump. The Los Angeles City Council approved an ordinance to safeguard immigrants, which restricts the use of city resources for federal immigration enforcement. And a losing bidder linked to Alex Jones is contesting the Onion's purchase of his InfoWars website, alleging the auction was rigged. I am Grace G, and this has been A Moment of News.
All right. Thank you, Grace, for that moment of news. And there was one correction. Last week in the news segment, we had said that a FEMA employee was denying people in North Carolina support. It was actually Florida. So if you caught in the news thing that the government is now going after FEMA because of that individual. So wanted to get that clear because we had said North Carolina, and that's not Grace's fault. That's mine. And, but I wanted to make sure we had that correction going. And then there was some other stuff that had happened. Jesse Smollett, I think his name is. The young man that played on Empire that, I probably messed his name up. But, the young brother who had said that the Trump supporters had jumped him in Chicago and, did some things to him. And initially he had worked out a deal with the state's attorney. And then next thing you know, he got convicted. Well, the Illinois State Supreme Court overturned the conviction. Basically, in so many terms, it's like, yeah, they had already worked out a deal. It's not exactly double jeopardy, but, this had already been worked out. And then you wanted to push for, I guess, for whatever political reasons, you wanted to make an example of him. And yeah, the state Supreme Court wasn't down with that. So that conviction's been overturned. So now he can, I guess, go forward in his life, whatever he wants to do with that. The tie-in, though, is that Rahm Emanuel, as you heard, wants to be the chair of the Democratic Party, and he was the mayor at the time when Smollett was arrested, and he was the one pushing for Smollett, the young man, to be convicted. So, everything ties in. But anyway, enough of that. I just wanted to throw that in because we didn't really have time to cover that. Now it's time for my friend Marty Davis. Marty has been involved in politics and media for a long time. She's retired now, but she does a newsletter, and we call it Marty's Crystal Ball. And she kind of gives her assessment of what's going on in the political world, just now as an outside observer more than somebody that's on the inside. But she's done news, radio. She's, she was married to a congressman and all that stuff. And she still keeps tabs on everything. So, we connected, and I enjoy listening to her give her opinions about things. And, some of the conversations we have offline are a lot better than what you hear in the interview because there's no time constraints on that. But I value her opinion and I value her spirit. And I'm honored that her and Will and Coach Killings are people, and the Pearsons, my good lawyer friends, are regular contributors to the show. And because I value their input, and I greatly appreciate not only their input, but their spirit and their energy. So another friend of the program, ladies and gentlemen, is my distinct honor and privilege to have as a guest on this podcast, Marty Davis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have Marty Davis. Marty, how you doing, ma'am? You doing good?
Oh, I'm just doing ducky. My dear Eric. Yes, just great.
Well, look, I'm doing good. I'm about to play something. Normally, like I said, I start off with a quote, but instead I'm going to do something because the last time you were on, it was April of this year. And I asked you a question, and the whole segment was Marty's crystal ball, right? And you were kind of making predictions and kind of assessments about different issues. So I asked you who was going to win the election. And this is only part of the answer, but you'll get the gist of it. So here we go.
I don't know. It's really a crapshoot, obviously. But if I would say Trump's going to pull this out, and I don't know why. But, my psychic instinct is that he'll pull it out.
Well, your psychic instinct was right, Marty Davis. That crystal ball was working. And, and Donald Trump is now going to be the 47th president of the United States, as opposed to being the 45th. So even though you said at that time that you really didn't have an idea, and at that time Biden was still running, during that period when Biden dropped out and Harris got in, did you think anything was going to change, or were you pretty solid on your instinct that Trump was going to win?
I knew that nothing was going to change just from my feelings. You know that back in 2020, Eric, I saw that Trump's loss had to happen. It had to happen, and the country had to go through the time with Biden and then get to the point where Trump would eventually get reelected. I know that sounds very strange. However, as you know, and as some of your viewers or listeners know, that if they know me, they know that I have that uncanny ability, and I don't know where I divine it, but to see things that other people are unable to see. And in politics, I've been around the block for so many years. I know this stuff. I really do. And I saw, I don't know if you want me to take a deep dive in my analysis of the 2024 presidential election. Biden drops out after that disastrous debate, and then Kamala is anointed his successor. She comes in, and the message is vibes and joy. What I saw, and other Americans and other political prognosticators, and you did too, what I saw was the Democrats just didn't get it. They didn't understand what the issues really were, or they didn't want to embrace those issues such as immigration, the economy and inflation and everything like that, this transgender movement and boys and girls sports and things like that that matter to the rank and file American voter. And I think that the voters had enough. They just simply had enough. And they wanted some sense, I would think, of normalcy. I'm distancing myself from being politically partisan about this. I'm just looking at this in an analytical manner. And the Democrats just were stubbornly adamant about pushing these issues. And then Kamala Harris, as a candidate, in my humble opinion, made several mistakes, one of which not answering media questions. It was so orchestrated, not having spontaneous interactions with reporters, and an inability when she did communicate to be effective, I thought. And hiring the celebrities for millions of dollars to pump her up and hopefully have that translated into votes. My experience, Eric, is that celebrity endorsements mean nothing. Zero. I remember when my second husband was running for Congress in Michigan and the Democrats brought in Teddy Kennedy. I'm telling you, this stuff doesn't work. It just doesn't. And this was way back. Historically, these endorsements don't work. And here we are. It didn't happen in this instance either. Then there was the polling. The polling was, I read Nate Silver, and the polling appeared to be weighted. But then again, all polling is weighted. And the one polling data that came in at the end was the Des Moines, Iowa poll. And Ruth Sell, I don't remember the last name, but anyway, she ended up resigning. And she said that Kamala was going to win. It was 47 to something. Correct, Eric? Something like that. Well, yeah, the polling was flawed. And there's some that will say, no, it wasn't. It wasn't flawed, but it appeared to be flawed. I ask you this. How are you going to take a polling questionnaire from 808 voters? How is that going to be representative of the country? Now, the pollsters will say, yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Marty. When you talk about Kamala and the responses to the media, I guess it was Charlemagne or somebody asked her that question directly, and she said it was discipline, that she was staying on message, whatever talking point she was given, whatever talking point she felt comfortable saying, that it was discipline and that she needed to stay on that discipline in order to make sure that the point she wanted to get out was out. You think that was a bad idea. Why?
It was definitely a mistake, Eric, because, and I don't even think Charlemagne the God bought it. How could he buy that? You know what defense mechanisms are? Well, she was using a defense mechanism. She was rationalizing, she was justifying her unwillingness to answer questions posed by the media, unless it was in a friendly environment and it was controlled. And it was obvious I would think it was obvious to voters, anyone who watched any of these encounters she had with the media. She didn't come off as being real or credible, real as a person, I thought. And I believe that her handlers made a fatal error in not allowing her, taking her off the leash and letting her answer some questions. However, I am wondering if she was simply incapable. If you look at some of her other appearances in the media, like that space thing she did with Kitty Actors or something, where she was, I just don't think she's capable. I think she has anxiety issues. I think some of this is pathological. And, hey, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV. However, I know human behavior and I understand communications and body language and those sorts of things that define one's ability to communicate. And I wasn't seeing it. I wasn't seeing it. I wasn't seeing a genuineness. I was seeing stock answers. I was seeing unintelligible answers. And she had the friendly media on her side, obviously, and she did do some friendly media interviews, and she was being talked up by most of the mainstream media, or all of it, for all I know. And, you know, it looked good for her as far as what she was getting from the media. However, her own appearances were just not convincing, Eric, to me.
Well, I'll push back a little bit on that, because I think one, because I've been in it, not to that extent, right? I mean, I've run a statewide campaign before, and I've had to, but I'm a different type of person, and I kind of get where you're going with that. I can be spontaneous. I can handle certain things and all that. But, you know, when it got to a certain level, it's like, okay, you know, just in case you get in a debate or whatever the case, we need you to make sure that we've got these points covered. And, you know, at the national level, they send you all these talking points and they want you to do this. I've had to be surrogate for a candidate. Mm-hmm. And so I get the talking points. And I was even explaining to one of my coworkers, you know, is like, well, she doesn't really answer questions. And I said, have you ever heard of this term called artful dodging? Right? I said, that's a skill set that a lot of politicians have to have. If you don't want to lie about something, or you don't want to really give the whole truth, but you want to give a semblance of answering the question, or if you really don't know and you're not comfortable with saying, I don't know, then that's a skill set you develop to say, okay, well, this is the answer I'm going to give you. Now, some reporters are like, they're going to stay on you until they get the answer that they know that you're not BSing them, right? That you're not pulling their leg. And then, you know, but in this news cycle, in the times we're in, if you got a soundbite, run it and let's keep it moving, right? So I think that's where, if you're saying the media was friendly, I think the media is impatient. And I think that as long as they got a answer that they can run at 5, at 6, you know, on their A block shows, if it's cable news, then they're going to run with that and keep it moving, right? I think for somebody that was said, okay, you're running for president and you've got 107 days to win, I think she did a phenomenal job. I don't know if I could have pulled that off. And I know you think you hold me in high esteem, and I appreciate that, but I don't think I could have been as smooth as she looked, you know, in 107 days. And I think she accomplished what she wanted to accomplish as far as energizing a particular base. Now, I don't disagree with you that she didn't do what needed to be done to win the election, because it's obvious she didn't win. But, and then with the endorsement piece, yeah, now we're finding out. But see, a lot of that money is not necessarily money that goes into these celebrities' pockets. It's like, if it's anything, if I'm bringing Bruce Springsteen in and he's talking about performing, that means I got to pay for the acoustics people. I got to pay for the guy that handles his guitar. I got to pay for all this stuff. I got to pay for the bus to get him to the rally, or the plane, or whatever it is. It's not like his money is getting in the pocket. It's just like, you know, it's just like if they were performing in a concert, you're the producer and you're trying to get this act to participate at this venue. That's basically how that money went. But nonetheless, I get what you're saying about spending money on celebrity endorsements, because I'm not a big fan of endorsements either. You can ask people, you know, it was like, you know, I've had people that's like believe that endorsements are religion. I live in Georgia. It's like, they believe in having a push card with yearbook pictures of all these elected officials saying that I support this person and all that. And people don't really care about that, because a lot of those folks, people have questions about whether they're going to vote for those people or not, right? So, you know, a lot of times those endorsement things don't really mean a whole lot, but it serves a purpose, especially in a presidential level, to generate excitement. And I think when you're trying to run a campaign that normally takes 2 years in this cycle, and you're trying to do it in 2 months, I think, you got to roll the dice and say, okay, well, we got to generate excitement everywhere we go. So if we're in Houston, we get Beyonce. If we're in New Jersey, we get Bruce Springsteen. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't necessarily fault her for that. But I do agree that message was an issue. And even though she was laying out, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do with this, and this is what I want to do with that, it was just kind of like what you were sensing. I think, a lot of people, and then another dynamic with this election to me was that people voted early. 80% of the American electorate voted before election day, which has never happened before. So people had their minds made up and they were just really waiting for their opportunity to go do it. And so whatever she said within the last 30 days of the campaign was in and out. It didn't matter. Whatever Trump did in the last 30 days was in and out because people had made up their minds at that particular point. And that's when the early voting started, like 30 days out. So I don't know if there was anything that she could have done to change that outcome. Okay. Let me ask you this. So I've been an advocate for people who have served their time, right, in jail or whatever, to be able to get a fresh start, whether it's to be allowed to vote, get a job, all this kind of stuff. And a good number of Americans don't really like that, right? It's a stigma that's on people. And it's a stigma that people have put on themselves because they committed the crime. But if they are trying to do something better in life, I think they should get another chance. That's my political position. But I never conceived of anybody being president out of that, right? Why do you think the American people made a decision that despite all of this stuff that Trump was dealing with from the legal side, that they said, well, we're going to give him a second chance. But if they had a business and somebody came in and said, well, I worked I had to do time and all that stuff, they might not even get an interview if they check that box on that application. You see where I'm going with that? Why do you feel that American people were forgiving of Donald Trump when it's not natural for them to be forgiving of anybody else in a similar situation?
Well, I will say this, Eric, I agree with you that somebody who does time and gets out deserves a second chance. Why not? That's pretty much a no-brainer to me. I think the deal with Trump was that people saw that the government or whatever was piling on him regarding all these lawfare, it's a new term, lawfare cases. And it was just one after the other. And it seemed clear to people that he was being railroaded. And that's what I perceived, that he was being railroaded. And so, ergo, they were able to look past that. Somebody took a shot at him and he used that to max benefit. And then somebody had a gun and was apprehended, attempting to do the same thing. He goes to McDonald's and serves up fries. He's like just, going around and doing all and getting a lot of buzz. However, I do, let's get back to what you were saying. Trump is a flawed guy. He's a narcissist. He's a sociopath who is emotional. Sociopaths are emotional. And he's a ready, fire, aim type guy. He is incredibly flawed. And the sexual these sexual cases, this harassment or rape or whatever, although I must say I've been in Bergdorf Goodman's fitting rooms, and I don't understand how anyone could get raped in a Bergdorf Goodman fitting room. I don't get it. Now, if somebody pulled that on me, if Trump, hey, he'd have his head between his legs, I told you when Jack Kemp tried to do that to me in his office. Did I? No.
Yes, ma'am, you did. Yeah, because you talked to me about the Bergdorf thing too, and that was the interesting. That you're the only person I've ever heard describe that dressing room at that shopping at that store.
There's no way. There's no freaking way. I kicked the guy in the balls. I mean, he would not. I mean, to me, it's the victim acceding to the perpetrator because of that person's power. That happens, that happens. And E. Jean doesn't seem to me, from what I got, to be somebody who she wouldn't fight like I would, because I don't give a rat's ass who Trump is or anybody else, They can go screw themselves. I'm not me, but I'm out of there. And I forgot that I told you about the Jack Kemp thing, but no, I just think that he appealed to a huge swath of voters, whether he was a criminal or not, whether he did this or not. And because of all the issues out there, people just thought that voting for Trump would give them a better life. They'd be able to afford what they did before. And it was a choice. And the Democrats' messaging wasn't exactly the greatest either. And I don't understand, Eric, for the life of me, why the Democrats and Biden kept perpetuating the fable that the economy was so great. It was. However, people weren't feeling that. It's the old Rolling Stone headline, perception versus reality. That was one of their famous Rolling Stones, or did I say Rolling Stone magazine, famous ad campaigns, perception versus reality. And people perceived what was going on in their lives with all these issues. So yeah, they were able to turn away from the Democrats and Kamala and Biden. And of course, we have to throw in the issue of Biden's foibles. Let's put it that way. I won't say anything else, but and the media and the government, the White House, I believe that voters really thought that they were being gaslighted. And they didn't like that either. So in the aggregate, I believe that all of those things contributed to Trump's reelection. Kamala made a mistake in picking Tim Walz as her vice president. She should have picked Josh Shapiro. However, she was obviously afraid of offending Arabs. And I'm from Dearborn, Michigan. So, hey, I have a lot of friends there and I understand what the deal is. However, from a political reality, she would have been a hell of a lot better off picking Shapiro. She may have won had she picked Shapiro. I don't know what you think, but she may have won. She came out of the gate, right out of the gate. She was great at the convention. And she did get the energy. There was a lot of energy and excitement about her candidacy. Understandably, the first woman potential president of the United States. I just think that she did run an excellent campaign. She did. And that's due to her staffing, Jen O'Malley and some of the other people. However, I just don't think that she was able, for a variety of reasons, to rise to the occasion and get across the finish line. Her communications, what I've already said about that. She to me, was constitutionally incapable of communicating. That's just me. She did great in the debate against Trump. She did a great job. However, when it came to those unscripted encounters with the press or anyone else, she was incapable of doing it, in my opinion. Meanwhile, you got Trump off there, doing his little dance and talking to everybody and, connecting with everybody. And it was the antithesis of Kamala Harris. And I think that Democrats now are really rethinking their messaging. There's a good piece in the New Republic, which I read, about Trump 2.0, except in this scenario, it's all the horror things that will happen to America under Trump. Everything. It's a litany of a shit show of Trump 47. So, who knows what's going to happen? I know that Trump is vengeful. I'm sure he's going to take out all sorts of revenge on his opponents, because that's part of his personality, his sociopathic personality, and other things. In the article in the New Republic, they talked about Schedule F, and I don't think that Trump is going to round up every illegal alien post haste and, send them out of the country and at gunpoint. Although I can understand why Democrats are concerned about Trump 2.0. It's a good article. Nina Burley writes it in the New Republic, and I read the New Republic. So it's worth taking a look at. Although I think it's the scare tactics, I believe, are unwarranted. We're going to have to see how this whole thing shakes out. His presidency, I'm sure he'll make some decent reforms. However, I don't know. And some of his nominees that Matt Gaetz, my God, I don't know if you want to go to that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because see, my thing with a lot of the concern that people have, including me, because my joke when he was president the first time was whenever I went to DC, I said, please take me by the department, the archive, National Archives. And they say, why? I just want to make sure the Constitution is still on display, because he doesn't give a damn about the Constitution one way or the other. And I'm more concerned about it this time because, one, he's been in office before, so he has a better grasp this time of what he can and can't get away with. And he's going to have people that are not going to tell him no as quick. Now, the Matt Gaetz thing is a sign that there may still be a pulse, right, in D.C. Because, out of all the names that came out, Matt Gaetz was like, yeah, he's not acceptable, because you had Republican senators saying, yeah, I'm not voting for this guy. You literally had a debate whether Mike Guest, who's the representative from Mississippi on the Ethics Commission, was kind of like, yeah, we found some things, but I'm not at liberty to say it because now he's resigned and I don't know what the speaker wants to do. But there was a lot of hesitancy with him. So that was and then that John Thune was picked as the majority leader instead of Rick Scott, who Trump wanted. That looks like perception. That looks like that there is still some backbone within the Republican Party, and that they're going to not let President Trump do everything that he wants to do. But, I'm with you on the nominee. The whole concept of that is you're supposed to be trying to get the best and the brightest in a position to push your policy, right? And I don't think he's doing that. I think he's just picking who looks good on television, right? Because Tulsi Gabbard's been on TV. Gates is on TV all the time. The lady that he picked to replace Gates, she's been on TV. Huckabee had a TV show. You know what I'm saying? All these folks. I mean, even the guy for the Secretary of Defense. Yeah, he served his country, but he wasn't a general. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now you're going to elevate him over all these people to be over the Department of Defense. If you wanted him to be Secretary of the Army, that makes sense. But the actual Secretary of Defense, you know, we haven't even got to any policy discussion yet. It's just like, I just believe that if you're serious about the job and you really are committed to doing something, because 76 million people voted for you to do your job, right? It's like you said, people have hopes and they have dreams and they have concerns that they want you to address. You know, so it's like he didn't rise to the occasion last time. And based on what I'm looking at with his appointments, I don't think he's going to rise to the occasion again. But so, I mean, what you've been up there, you've lived that life. You've been on that side of the Potomac River. What do you think that the natural instinct of people that are elected, people that are in Congress, are going to outweigh his desire to get revenge, his desire to just do what he wants to do?
No. And regarding Thune, I'll tell you about Thune. I think Thune was a compromise candidate between Scott and Cornyn. And Cornyn was entirely not suitable for this. Okay. I don't think so. Trump is the kind of guy, he's a freaking steamroller, and he's going to get his own way. And if you don't play ball with him, you know, you're freaking dead. And this is how he operates. And as far as Gates, here's my theory on Gates. I think Trump deliberately appointed him to get him out of the House. He resigns from the House, deliberately appoints him knowing he's going to go down. There's no way that the Senate's going to confirm this clown. So the guy gets out, and now he has nowhere to go. And he thinks that he's going to get Rubio's Senate seat when Trump is going to appoint his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, to that Senate seat. And then here's Gates twisting in the wind. There's talk today that, he'll try to reclaim his seat he resigned in the House. Well, he's unable to do it until next year to try to get his seat back. Or he's thinking he'll run for governor of Florida. Well, you know, it'd be a cold day in hell when Gates would be elected the governor of Florida. So I think this was a rather strategic way to get Gates the hell out of politics. I know that sounds weird, but that's where my strange head is going as far as Gates. Now, I may be reading too much into this and doing all this analyzation, but who the hell wants Gates anywhere?
Yeah,
Republican politics.
I agree. I think, you know, he's been, you know, a very entitled person, you know, to get to where he is. Now, technically, he got reelected. So if he shows up the first week of January and raises his hand, he can be reinstated to Congress. But then that opens the investigation back up if he decides to do that. So, you know, he's got till the first week in January to decide if he's going to stay out of Congress or how he's going to play that. Now, of course, his friend Marjorie Taylor Greene has said, I'm going to tell everybody's business if y'all keep going after Gates. They're going to be like, we don't care. You know, I think I tend to agree with you that I think they wanted him to take that fall, but Donald Trump doesn't like failure. So, where he doesn't want to say that he made a mistake or anything like that. So, what kind of spin would he put on that? I think the best thing to have.
Well, I don't know what kind of deal he made. You don't know what kind of deal he made. This thing, the machinations, the political machinations to get rid of this guy. Trump might be able to just eat that. And what favor did he get in return? This is what the whole thing is. What did he get in return for annihilating Gates, for example? The quid pro quo. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, please. My God, Congress is not what it used to be. The House isn't what it used to be. That whack job does not belong in the U.S. House of Representatives. Period. Full stop. It's an embarrassment. She's an abject embarrassment to the reputation of Congress, of the House of Representatives. And anyone who served before who's dead is rolling in their grave. This is insane. As far as his other appointees, okay, he stuck Pam Bondi in there. Yeah, she's a TV talking head. He's put Pete Hegseth as SecDef. Now, I don't know how that thing's going to shake out. They're saying that one is pretty shaky, Hegseth. However, I don't see him tail between his legs, trotting back to Fox and sitting as a host on the Fox weekend or whatever it is. I don't know what the hell's going to happen with that. For some reason, I see him getting in, but by the skin of his ass, Who else do we have there? We've Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education, WWE. She's been on TV enough. Who else has been on TV?
I had mentioned Tulsi Gabbard, the former Congress.
Yeah. She's been all over the place. You knew that was going to happen. And then as National Security Advisor, I don't know how qualified she is for that. But then again, you got to understand that these political appointments are payback. This is what happens. It's not necessarily the most qualified person. It's payback. When I worked for the government for a while in one of my previous incarnations. I was a senior White House political appointee under George Bush 41. So I get assigned to one agency, and the guy who's the head of the agency, it's a Small Business Administration, is the owner of Clairol, Bruce Gelb. So Bruce Gelb comes in there. He's entirely clueless. And every time I saw him, he asked me, "Did you do something different with your hair?" Honest to God. Every time he talked, "What did you do with your hair?" I mean, the guy was just incompetent beyond.
Well, he did work for Marty. He did work for Clairol. I mean, that's kind of where he was making his money. So he was going to notice.
Don't Clairol, but still, what a dumbass comment to say to someone he was unable to have a normal conversation with someone, and he had to say something dumbass like that, I saw so much when I was a political appointee, so much incompetence. This was a Republican administration. I couldn't believe it. I saw more competence among the civil servants than I did the political appointees. It was just can you say the F word on this? No, you don't say the F word here. Okay. It was just an effing joke. I mean, honest to God, I worked for two different agencies and I've never seen anything like it so much. Oh my God. I actually got somebody fired who was a career civil servant because he was sitting in his office with the door closed, writing a book. He'd already written books before. So I had to get so much book on this guy to get his ass fired. But I actually got a career civil servant fired, and it's impossible. It's almost impossible to dislodge them once they're in. They're like cockroaches. The roaches check in and they never check out. And Gelb from the Clairol dude ended up being the appointed ambassador to the Seychelles. Is that how you say it? Yeah. They shuffled him off somewhere else because he was a big donor. I'm so jaded, Eric. Honestly, I'm so bloody jaded.
I understand. You know? These national politics will get that way, but let's see if we can wrap this up a little bit. Cause I want to pick your brain just like I did in asking you who you thought was going to win. You know, there's a lot of talk about what Trump's going to do when he first gets in. And one of the things he is talking about is getting rid of that civil service protection. And he's talking about, even though he said he only had a concept of a plan, that he wants to deal with the Affordable Care Act. He wants to modify it, do something. He had one proposal back in the day to make it so that states, like if you lived in Georgia and you saw that Mississippi had a cheaper rate, that he would allow people to do that. That was one positive thing he wanted to do. But, you know, usually when you open it up to do quote unquote a positive thing, then all sorts of other stuff, you know, happens when you reopen legislation. I remember I wanted to change something in the state legislature in Mississippi, but I was going to open the Landlord Tenant Act, and nobody wanted that reopened because they didn't want the Realtors Association to get in there and mess it up. And, you know, they felt they had a pretty good compromise, and it took 30 years to get that passed, and they were like, oh, Fleming, no, we're not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I get that there's some reluctance in that. What do you think that Trump is going to be able to do in his first 100 days that we as voters, as political observers, need to watch out for?
I don't think he's going to touch the Affordable Care Act in the first 100 days. And I have no idea, Eric, what he wants to do with it. What's so bad about the Affordable Care Act? Doesn't it permit people to get insurance? What's he going to do to it to make it any different or any better? That's the point. I honestly don't think he's going to touch that. The first thing he's going to do is he's going to crack down on all these migrants in the country. That's what I think he's going to do. He already said it. I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know. As far as taking away civil service protection, I think that he's hell bent on reforming civil service, and he's hell bent on firing thousands of federal employees. You know that. That's what he wants to do. He and Elon and that Doge, new Doge. I wrote a headline that said, "Who let the Doge out?" But I mean, really. That's what they're going to do. They're going to go in there with a machete, and they're going to slash, everything. They're going to slash employees. They're going to slash government agencies. They're going to get rid of all the people they think, all the jobs they think are expendable. You could call them the expendables. That's what they're going to do. And I think between the getting rid of the migrants imported by the Biden administration and the federal agencies and civil service, I think those are a couple of things that they're going to do right away. And federal employees should be just crapping in their pants because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know their future. Throw them out on the street so they can collect government benefits. I don't know. I just don't know. And I'm trying to think of, do you have any ideas what he's going to do in his first 100 days? Do you think he'll implement that Schedule F?
Yeah. And I think that's the main thing. Cause if he does that, and I'm going to say it to you, and I've said it to my listeners and stuff, that actually is a Black or African American issue, because the biggest employer of African Americans in the United States is the government, whether it's federal, state, local. And so if you're going to get rid of that many government employees, well, that's going to have a major impact on the black community because a lot of black people work for the federal government. So I think, that was when that Project 2025 first came out, that was the first thing that kind of got my attention. I think I'm with you. I think he's going to deal with that first. And I think he really does have a desire to try to address the immigration issue, but he's not going to be able to get rid of 11 million people. Some of his folks already dumbed that down and said, well, he's probably not going to get rid of 1 million, a year or whatever the case may be, but that's 4 million people you're talking about trying to do in 4 years. Yeah. So I think that's all going to be smoke and mirrors. I don't think that's going to be anywhere close to the numbers that he's talking about. I think what they want to do is, like in the first 4 years, create something when he was separating the families and all that, try to create a deterrence and try to keep people from coming to the United States. I don't think he realistically can get rid of 11 million folks. I don't think, we can expend that kind of resource to do that. But, but he's
going to build the wall.
Well, again, I think it's all going to be smoke and mirrors. I think he's going to do like he did last time. He's going to push through. I mean, Biden ended up building more of his wall than he did, because a lot of the deadlines fell under Biden's administration. Biden was like, look, it's in the budget. We got to put it up, but yeah, I think he's just going to, he'll have some spaces. He's going to, there's some federal land available in Texas. He's going to round up some people and put them out there. And I don't know if they're going to be intense or what the deal is, but it's going to be a show. All I think is just going to be a show to try to discourage people from immigrating into the United States and try to get the numbers down and all that. But as far as actually working on the problem and having a comprehensive solution to the problem, I don't see that happening.
Well, he wants the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. I mean, that gang has spread countrywide, and I know that he's concerned about that gang and crime. Maybe he'll go after those people first, to get them out of there, because that's really worrisome. And as far as civil servants, let me tell you, the best employees I ever worked with or supervised are the black employees. I got along so well with them. They were so competent, and it would be a crying shame if they're the ones who get hit by this. If I were Trump, I'd get rid of all the white dude and dudette political appointees who were morons. And then some of these other white guys who are in there who don't know shit from Shinola. I saw it, I'm not making this up. And keep the solid employees. I had the best. I was so impressed with my employees in this one department and agency wide. And I would think, based on merit, that the black federal employees should be sitting pretty, although you just don't know. Why jettison the excellent employees in favor of these doofuses who don't know?
Because it's going to be a loyalty test. I mean, that's the whole premise. It's like, and that's the concern. It's like, if you have fidelity to President Trump and his administration, that's a plus for you. If you are an independent person that's like, I'm going to do what the procedures are, I'm going to do with what's the guidelines of the agency, he doesn't necessarily want that. At least that's the perception he's given. So the more competent you are, the more likely you'll probably get released, because he wants people who are loyal to him. And that's the concern.
The thing is, that's why they have political appointees. They just flood these agencies with all these loyalists, these political appointees. Each agency has a liaison office with the White House. I mean, it's just unbelievable. There's somebody stuck there, some political hack in this office of liaison between the White House and all these, I saw a young girl in my department who was put there because her father donated money and all this. I mean, it's reprehensible in my opinion. It really is. I just don't like it at all. Let's get jobs based on merit and don't put people in positions in which they are way over their skis. And I saw it at the Voice of America. I saw it in other places too, and that if Elon's and Vivek's Doge goes after people like that, then yay, get them out of there. I don't know. But if past is prologue, then Trump will continue the tradition of appointing the usual suspects who crawl right up his rear, and who've given money and whatever their time and all that. And I just absolutely loathe that practice. But, what do I know? Who am I? I'm nobody. I didn't work for Trump. I ain't getting a job. You know that. You were a member of representatives. You were a politician in Missouri. You were, you know what the thrill is.
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah. It's Mississippi, but
was it Mississippi?
Yeah, it's Mississippi, but it's the same in Missouri or anywhere else. I mean, everybody knows about the grift and all that stuff. And I didn't play the game, which is why I only served so many years. I didn't stay up there for 20 or 30 like some other folks, but
that's why I love you, because you're real and you have principles. And I just, I can feel it. I just feel it. You have principles. And I admire and respect you so much, Eric, for everything you've done. Hey, you rolled the dice. You were in there.
Yeah. Well, I can make the same argument for you, Marty, because you've been in it from a government side, and you've been in it from a media side, and so that's why I'm glad that we've met and try to get you on so people can hear that kind of perspective, because I think people need to hear something real. And so I'm just glad. So look, I'm going to have to let you go because we could talk for hours.
Hey, you're in Georgia. Are you in, my daughter's in Georgia. Maybe I can connect with you when I go there. She's in Woodstock.
Oh, that's not that far from where I am. I'm up around in Sandy Springs, Marietta, that area over there.
Well, my son-in-law works at Yamaha Motors U.S. headquarters in Marietta. Hey, that's what we're going to do.
All right. Well, we'll talk about all that off the air. We'll make those arrangements.
Here now?
Yeah, we're still recording. So, but look, no, we're good. We're good. So look, Marty, let's go ahead and end that so we can finish that conversation. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I greatly appreciate you. And all right, guys, and we're going to catch y'all on the other side. All right, and we are back. So, Marty, thank you again for taking the time out to come on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to hanging out with you when you're in Georgia. That's for all of my friends of the program. Whenever we can get together, that'd be great. One day I'll be able to entertain and do that kind of stuff. But right now, I just value the time that we share on the podcast. And I hope that y'all got something out of that as far as, how people are feeling and all that kind of stuff. But real quick, I do want to address a couple of things real quick. And one, I want to understand people. I make it a point to try to get the gist of where people come from. If I understand the history, then I can understand the action. That's the way I've always been. When I go to another city, whether to live or visit, I would like to be there to understand the history of that place so I can understand why things are the way they are. And I definitely want to understand that with people. If I know a little bit about you, then I can kind of understand why you do the things you do. Could be anything from why you support a particular sports team, or why you wanted to go in a particular profession, or in the case of politics, why you push for certain issues, why you vote for certain things. The difference with politics is that, actions that any of us take when we're elected has a greater impact on more than just us, or more than just our immediate family or surroundings. It has a greater impact. And Robert F. Kennedy Sr. talked about the ripples in the pond, right? So there's this congresswoman named Nancy Mace. And when she first got in there, I kind of respected her as a Republican. She was not, I guess, or at least the perception was that she was not an extremist. She just was a conservative. And, as the time gets in there, and like a lot of people, when they get in a position of power and exposure, people kind of gravitate to that and they want to stay in it for as long as they can. And I don't have a problem with that if you don't let that be your motivation. If you take advantage of that to utilize the position to do help and do no harm, if your ego gets stroked a little bit, I'm not mad at you about that. But I really think this last little thing that she did is all about ego. Now, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. And if you're not aware of what I'm talking about, she wanted to, I guess it was a rule change she wanted to do or something, as she submitted to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson to prohibit a new member of Congress from using the same bathroom that she would use. So Nancy Mace is a white cisgendered female from North Carolina, just got reelected thanks to favorable gerrymandered redistricting, by the way. And a young lady, transgender lady from Delaware, is now going to be the first transgender member of Congress. Her name is Sarah McBride. So Sarah, this is not like Sarah just popped out of nowhere. She was a state legislator in Delaware. And so she's filling, I believe, the slot that Lisa Rochester had in Congress. And now Lisa is going to be the junior senator from Delaware. And so Sarah got elected to Congress. And so, it's like the freshman members come in like within a week of the election. They all show up to go through orientation, take their pictures and all that stuff. Well, it was during her orientation week that Nancy Mace decided that she wanted to take this stand and basically target Representative-elect McBride and basically send a shot across the bow saying, I don't want to see you in the same bathroom I have to go to. Right. And I think that's kind of a messed up way to endear yourself or to introduce yourself to a new member of Congress. As a black person, it just kind of reminds me of what maybe Shirley Chisholm had to go through, or John Conyers, or an Oscar the Priest or something like that. People Hiram Revels or Blanche K. Bruce, when they first showed up in the building, could they go to the cloakroom like everybody else? Could they go to the bathroom with other white members? You know what I'm saying? During that era of segregation and all that kind of stuff. So as a black person that understands history and understands human sensitivity, I just think that's a messed up way to kind of do it. And if you talk to Representative-elect McBride, she basically she's not naive. She anticipated that there would be some kind of backlash, and she already had made arrangements or kind of put together a rule that she was just going to go, or try to go to bathrooms that didn't have multi-stalls. So she wouldn't make people who haven't quite matured yet or wouldn't be accepting to make it easy. And she made that decision on her own. She wasn't going to try to flout it or anything like that, because her job, as she said, is to represent her constituents. She's not trying to make that point. She's already made it because she won the election, and she's been in government for a number of years. So when it's time to deal with those issues, she'll deal with them, but she's not trying to make herself a martyr out of the issue. Role model, maybe, but martyr, no. But now Nancy Mace, if you don't know her backstory, she was a victim of sexual assault. And so there are a number of people, I know black people, white people, Latino people, Asian people, that have that opinion based on a previous traumatic event of sexual assault. And just the notion of somebody transgender being in the same bathroom, they go there with that. Whether you call it abnormal, whether you call it unhealthy, or whatever the case may be, if we take people at the benefit of their word and give them the benefit of the doubt and try to be sensitive, that's an issue. But I would have rather Nancy Mace had pulled Sarah McBride to the side, introduced herself, and basically just kind of talked to her, and all this kind of stuff, instead of grandstanding and trying to make an issue and getting on every news media outlet or whatever, and endear herself to the True Social, OAN, Fox News crowd, right? It stir up something. I think it's funny when she says that she's a feminist, but, and that she's not cool with all this because of her history of sexual assault, but yet you supported Donald Trump. You friends with Matt Gaetz. It's like everybody that's been nominated that's got some kind of sexual assault history, there's a picture of you hugging that man. I guess because y'all all are Republicans, so that's okay, right? See, it's kind of like when you're all about opportunity, that's where hypocrisy kicks in. If you're true to the game, because initially she wasn't down with Donald Trump, but she wanted to maintain, so she bowed down. But I wouldn't be trying to get a picture of him. I mean, he literally campaigned against her, and he just kind of surrendered to her because she beat his candidate, just like Brian Kemp beat Purdue in Georgia. You have to respect that guy. You have to respect that woman, because I tried to take him out and they won. So she kind of had that going for her. So she doesn't really need to endear herself with him. As long as she can stay in Congress and do what needs to be done in a positive way. Yeah, there's nothing really Donald Trump or anybody can do to her. Now if they ever get those districts right in North Carolina, she may have a strong Democratic opponent. But other than that, not really. So I just think it was disingenuous the way that she went about doing it. I don't want to dismiss her history, and I don't want to dismiss that as a initial motivation or real concern. But I think in a divided nation, I think we've got to make that extra effort to understand, because there's nothing she can do to Sarah McBride. Sarah McBride was duly elected, just like she was. Sarah McBride can't vote for or against her, and Nancy Mace can't vote or against Sarah. So they were both sent to the same place to work for the American people. So instinct for me would be to try to at least reach out and understand. But that's not an instinct, it seems like, in this day and age of politics. And if we're going to move this country forward, if you want to prove those of us who believe that the country that my ancestors fought to move forward and make better, or worked to move forward and make better, then we got to get that instinct back. We got to get back to the point of talking to each other about understanding. I'm a little sensitive to that because of my work with the ACLU. We were given the task of empowering the transgender community politically. And that was a great experience for me. It was a learning experience, one, and to do something that up until that point, I only really focused in on African Americans. I had done some stuff in the Latino community, but not to the extent that I had done in the African American community to empower people and to be in a position to empower the transgender community to find voices to work and to give people the skill sets to legally and politically navigate what was coming at them. I just think we've got to get to a point where we have to accept people for who they are. We ain't got to be friends with everybody. We ain't got to agree on everything. But at some point in time, we have to realize that we have to coexist and get along. And the sooner, the better. Because I'm about to be 60. I'm really not trying to be in a war. Civil, uncivil, whatever. I'm not trying to be in any of that. I don't want it to get to that point. But we keep pushing the envelope and keep wanting to get a rise out of folks for our own political gain. That's usually how that story ends up. You don't have to look at just the history of the United States. I mean, just look all over the globe. If rational people took the lead, a lot of these conflicts that are going on all over the world and the division that's happening here in the United States would be over. Well, not over, but for the most part. You know, we got to get to a point of coexistence. So I don't want to come across as being harsh to Representative Mace, but I'll just say I wish that you handled that better. I wish you didn't use that as a platform or a stepping stone. I wish that you could have rose to the occasion and was woman enough to talk to Representative McBride and just say, look, I come from a district. I come from a background. I got some concerns. Can we talk? And once she heard how Representative McBride was going to handle that, that had been it. You know, now outside of that, they probably won't agree on anything else. But if they learn to respect each other and learn how to navigate each other's spaces, that's 3/4 of the battle. And I really wish that people got that. Just let people coexist. If that's not your lifestyle, if that's not your life experience, that's not your socialization, that's fine. I don't care if you're a Christian. I don't care if you're a Muslim. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're a Buddhist. I don't care if you're an atheist. When I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state I was in, which was Mississippi, my job was to make sure that your rights were protected and that your ability to grow and expand was there. Period. If you were part of a group that was trying to stop other people from, then I was going to challenge that, either through legislation or activism, but I was going to challenge it. And I had some friends to back me up. But if you were about uplifting people, then I was probably your biggest ally, right? And that's all we're all supposed to do in these elected positions, is to uplift, to do no harm, to raise the nation. If you really want to make America great again, then you gotta accept that Americans are not monolithic. The beauty of this nation is our diversity. Period. End of discussion. Religious diversity, ethnic diversity, biological diversity, the whole gamut. We are the most diverse nation on the planet. There's a reason for that. If you want to invoke God as a Christian, there's a reason for that. We are supposed to be the example for the world. But we keep failing these exams. Whether it's a pop quiz or whether it's a midterm or the final, we keep getting low grades. And we got to stop that. Because the more that we stay divided, the less we become the example, or we stay the example. You know. So I really want us to get in, and I really want us in the Black community to deal with issues like that in-house and just come to understand each other as individuals, as we strive to do what's best for the uplift of our people. Because I know some people are saying, well, you know, that's white folks, that's their problem. No. Once discrimination is allowed for anybody, that opens the door. The story of the Pandora's box was told for a reason. The parable is, if you allow any evil to get out, it opens the door for all evil to get out. So our objective is to shut that box. Period. We should never be in a position, especially Black folks, where we think it's all right to discriminate against anybody based on our history, our trauma, our experience. We should be about giving everybody an opportunity. I think it kind of showed in the election. I think we wanted to give a woman who was part Black, part Asian, Caribbean roots. We wanted to give her an opportunity to be president of the United States. We embraced her in our culture. Most of us. Right? We wanted to see what that looked like because we wanted to give our children another example of how far they could go. Somebody like Sarah McBride is going to run. Somebody like Tammy Baldwin is going to run for president one day. Are we going to be accepting of that? Or are we going to fail that exam too? America is not about homogeny. America is a concept that no matter who you are, where you come from, whatever you want to achieve, you have the opportunity to do that. And you have the opportunity to live and live abundantly. That's the mission. If we want to stop somebody because they're different, we're failing the mission. We want to inconvenience somebody because they're different. We're failing the mission. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And if people want to comment and all that stuff, you've always been welcome to do that. People want to come on the podcast and challenge that. You are welcome to do that. I just believe that that's where we need to be, because the way we are going, we're not going to progress. And whatever progress we make is going to be so incremental, we won't feel it. We have got to change. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. We've got to evolve. When you're the most diverse nation in the world, that is what is expected of us, to evolve. So I just felt I needed to say that, y'all. I'm still debating on whether I'm going to do an episode for Thanksgiving or not. I'm not going to do a news thing. If I do one, it's just going to be, just, might be a throwback to the old days, just me talking like now. Or it might, put together a couple of interviews I liked and let y'all listen to it. I don't know. We'll see. But I know it's not going to be any guests. It's not going to be any news or anything like that. It's just going to be me if we do it. And I guess you won't know until next week. But whatever happens, I do want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you get your chance to enjoy your family, enjoy some football, enjoy the cold weather, whatever gets you in a spirit of joy during the beginning of what we call our festive holiday season. It's safe travels for everybody that's going somewhere. And, if we're going to be thankful about something, be thankful that we live in a country where the concept is that we can be who we want to be and be the best at it. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
NBG Podcast Network.